press, and to give an overall update as to what's happening on the island from month to month. I am happy that through the assistance of the various permanent secretaries and the various ministries and departments of government that we've been able to maintain that particular commitment. Let me start where I normally do with some congratulatory remarks. So let me congratulate the Nevis Masters cricket team. They have once again won the Luther Kelly Over 35 cricket tournament held in St. Kitts on Sunday 24th and 25th October. Nevis was the defending champion, I'm told, so this means that we are back-to-back winners of that tournament. Congrats to the guys. When I see Masters, I know they're my age, or just maybe a little under, so it's good to see that they're still playing and playing well. Let me also congratulate Miss Kelsey Liebert, the daughter of the late Conrad Liebert and Mrs. Jennifer Liebert. She has been awarded the OAS 2020 scholarship. She is presently an undergraduate in hospitality management at Grand Canyon University in Arizona in the United States. And so we convey congratulations. Those who know Kelsey know that she has been an academic star for a very long time. And we congratulate her, and we congratulate certainly her mom, Jennifer, and her relatives. The budget address this year for the Nevis Island Administration will take place on Tuesday, the 8th of December at 11 a.m. We have pushed it back 1 hour to 11 a.m. to accommodate a very important function that was prior to our announcement, and that is the graduation of the Charlestown Secondary School. And so since most ministers would wish to attend these very important graduation functions, we had pushed back the budget address to 11 a.m. So on Tuesday, 8 December at 11 a.m., we hope to convene the Nevis Island Assembly for the reading of the annual budget. Let me at this point, ladies and gentlemen, express my very deep and heartfelt condolences to the family of Mrs. Judy Williams Hanley. She was someone who was known to all of us, a very quiet and unassuming individual, a very hard worker. She worked, I'm advised, with the Labor Department and as part of the Nevis Island Administration staff. And she had a terrible accident where it appears, based on preliminary reports, she came into contact with electricity line and sadly passed away. And so I would want to extend my very deep condolences to her family, her husband, Mr. Hanley, and all of her family members. Let me also extend condolences to my dear friend Sarah and the siblings and others on the passing of Connie Skeet. Connie, likewise, was somebody who was known to all of us. You couldn't travel on the inter-island ferries and not know Connie Skeet. She was certainly somebody who was incredibly pleasant and someone who worked extremely hard, and we were all very saddened to hear of her passing. I gather she was only about 43 years old, so a very young woman who passed away suddenly and leaves to mourn her family members, her children, of course, and her siblings and her mom. Her mom especially, Sarah, is very close to me, and I would want to use this rostrum to express our deep condolences on the passing of Connie. While I'm expressing condolences, let me move to Brown Hill and express deep condolences to the family of Debbie Tyrell, who passed away just about a week ago. Debbie was known to all of us. She was, in fact, a relative of mine, and I would want to express my condolences to all of her siblings who survive her, to all of her children who survive her, and to say that they will remain in our prayers. And so these are never good things to speak about because they are areas that bring great sadness to our community, but nevertheless we understand that in the midst of life there's death, and it is an appointment that we all have to make and all have to keep. And so when these things do happen, we offer our prayers and our condolences. And so to those families that are mourning, we certainly offer from the Premier's office our deepest condolences. Let me announce, I think, something that should be a headline. Every week I try to get a few headlines. Well, the long-awaited police station at Newcastle, we should have a formal opening of that police station and fire hall on Thursday, the 3rd of December at 10 a.m. So Thursday, the 3rd of December, I believe that's next Thursday, at 10 a.m. we should have that opening. And I know some of you already say it looks like a hotel. Some are saying it is not only the best in the Federation, it's the best in the Caribbean. And I would want to commend publicly the Deputy Premier, the Honourable Alexis Jeffers, who has spearheaded that particular project on behalf of the good people of Nevis. At the end of the day, the police and the fire services are the beneficiaries. At the end of the day, we all knew what was there. And we had our police officers, the men and women who serve and who protect us, serving out of a building that was not fit for human habitation. The NIA saw the need, and we decided that we had to do something about it. I want to put this, again, as I often do, in the context that there is no line item in the NIA budget for national security. But nevertheless, we continue to spend what little resources we have to ensure that the men and women in uniform on the island of Nevis, who keep all of us safe, that they are treated properly, that they are provided with the tools that they need to function, and in this case, they are provided with a building that we feel, when the public sees it unveiled on the 3rd of November, that they will all say that they're well pleased. I have seen from the outside, I have deliberately not gone inside because I want to be surprised like everybody. But the minister has said to us, the Deputy Premier, in his own inimitable style, that when we get inside, we will think that we are at the Four Seasons. And that is, I think, the style in which we ought to treat our police, our fire services. I think we're setting a standard here that I'm hopeful will be maintained. And so we invite one and all who can come to come and see the unveiling of the Newcastle Police Station and Fire Hall on Thursday, the 3rd of December at 10 a.m. While I'm talking about the police, let me take a moment. It's a topic that I have not addressed in some time. And perhaps it speaks to the successes that we've had that I have not had to address it, and that is the issue of crime. That hitherto, crime was very high on the agenda, and week after week I came here, and members of the press, you naturally bombarded me with questions about crime. I am very pleased to say that whilst, of course, we do not know when crime will occur, and crime is something that can occur at any moment, the truth is that through concerted effort by those in national security, led by the Honourable Prime Minister at the federal level, and, of course, our hard-working men and women in uniform, particularly our Commissioner of Police, Hilroy Brandy, and his team, and the man who manages and runs the District C, which is the Nevis section of the police, that is Superintendent, forgive me, David. I would want to commend them for the excellent job that they have been doing and the leadership that they have demonstrated. To give some context, crime in Nevis as of October 2020 is down some 42%. 42% overall crime, and this is major crimes that I'm talking about. As of October 2020, down 42% from the same period, October 2019. When we drill down some more, we see that drug crimes are down in 2020 up to October some 70% compared to 2019. Larceny, a big word for stealing, is down in 2020 some 36% from where we were in 2019. Sexual assault is down some 67% this year over last year. Robbery, that's down some 67% this year over last year. Grievous bodily harm is down some 54% this year over last year. And malicious damage to property is down some 56% this year over last year. I say that because I think it's important that we give credit to the hard work of the security forces, but we also give credit to our communities and our people who have decided that enough was enough and who are now not only conducting themselves in the appropriate manner, but where necessary, assisting the police in the detection of crime. And so I stand with our police, as I always do, unreservedly. And I think, ladies and gentlemen of the press and members of the public, that it is instructive that the Nevis Island administration has always demonstrated, and I make the point because this is not a political point that I'm making, that successive administrations, both under the NRP and under the CCM, we have always stood with the police. We think about the Gingerland Police Station. We think about the Charlestown Police Station. We think about the Cotton Ground Police Station. We think about the barracks up at Bath. We think about the housing that has been provided at Butlers. And we think now about the brand new Newcastle Police Station. And you see that the NIA has always been there and has always supported, not just in word, but indeed in action, our police. And so their success is our success. And when they do well, the entire community benefits. And so I thank them, I thank the leadership, and we pledge our continuing commitment and support. Let me segue to the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs. The Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs has welcomed a Mr. William Chen, Project Manager for the Capacity Building Metabolic Disease Prevention and Control Project. This 4-year public health project is jointly funded by the Federal Ministry of Health, the Republic of China, Taiwan, and the Taipei Veteran General Hospital. The project will further expand on the previous interventions implemented in the Chronic Kidney Disease Project, but will also include the strengthening of patient self-management of metabolic diseases and introducing comorbidity treatment and standard of care. Mr. Chen met with stakeholders on Friday, the 7th of November, to discuss and plan the way forward. This project falls very much in line with the Ministry's current strategic plan and will assist us in reaching target 3.4 of the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations, Goal 3, by 2030, which is the target date. Reduce by 1/3 premature mortality from non-communicable diseases through prevention and treatment, and promote mental health and well-being. The Ministry will also like to recognize a very, very generous donation of 2 pieces of medical equipment: an electrosurgical machine, thermal seal, and a Pentax endoscopy machine, both used in surgery for therapeutic and diagnostic purposes, respectively. Both machines were purchased at a cost of approximately US $97,581. The donors wish to remain anonymous, but nevertheless, we express our profound gratitude to them for this very generous donation. And these machines, of course, have already been pressed into use at our operating theater. The Gender Affairs Department, they would have launched their 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. This, on Wednesday, the 25th of November 2020, is recognized as International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and marks one of the 16 days each year, starting November 25th to December 10th. World Human Rights Day is December 10th. This year's campaign theme, Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect. The 16-day campaign seeks to raise the awareness of gender-based violence and calls for action against the violation of human rights, particularly violence against women. The department launch included the unveiling of one of 3 murals, a puppet PSA and address by Miss Toni Ann Brodber, representative of the UN Women Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean, based in Barbados. Other activities will include the distribution of pamphlets, brochures, and a tell-all event dubbed Flipping the Script, which takes place Sunday 29th at Lime Beach Bar, starting at 4 p.m. Lime Beach Bar, of course, is at Pinnis Beach here in Nevis. The general public is being asked to wear orange on Friday, 27th November, in a show of solidarity. And so the Gender Affairs Department stepping up and leading the charge in relation to our continuing efforts to curb, prevent any form of gender-based violence, particularly violence against women and girls. The department has also engaged in various activities to mark International Men's Month, which included a church service, men's wellness seminar, social media challenge entitled Mask, Socks and Tie, and Men Can Cook. That workshop, which I'm told has some participants, including Minister Eric Evelyn. If you can teach Eric to cook, then there's hope for us all. So Eric is now cooking as part of the Men Can Cook class, and they will have their final cook-off, I'm told, on Monday, November 30th. The Health Promotion Unit's schedule of events leading up to World AIDS Day, which will be celebrated under the theme Global Solidarity, Shared Responsibility, and our local theme, Lime Responsibly. These will include an HIV ribbon unveiling ceremony at the Artisan Village at 10 a.m. The ceremony is to pay tribute to all those who would have lost their lives due to HIV complications. The ribbon will be lit in the evenings. The Lime Responsibly outreach event at DR Walwyn Plaza, starting from 2:30 to 6:30 the same day. Human ribbon photo op at Crishy Beach at 11 a.m. This activity seeks to bring awareness to the disease and not to lose the momentum gained, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Persons interested in taking part in this activity are asked to wear a red top along with their mask to join us at Crishy Beach. The Ministry of Health, lastly, wishes to extend congratulations to Miss Robina Wilkinson, our own dental nurse at the Gingerland Dental Unit. Miss Wilkinson graduated on Sunday, the 22nd November, from the University of Technology, College of Oral Health Science in Jamaica, with a master's degree in dental therapy. Congratulations to you, Robina. Very, very well done. We are very proud of you. Switching now to something that I think ought to be a major headline, I hope, for all of the media houses that are present, and that is the issue of water. We don't talk a lot about water, we take it for granted. But it is true that water is life, and many of us only remember that it is life when we turn on our taps and there's no water. I am extremely proud of the efforts that this government has made in relation to water security for the island of Nevis. The installation and commissioning of a modern, state-of-the-art Nevis water filtration and treatment plant at Hamilton Estate Reservoir has been completed. In fact, water from that filtration plant has been in our system since Friday, the 13th of November, 2020. The two experts from Lakeshore Engineering out of Georgia in the United States have already departed the island. They left on the 7th and the 12th of November, respectively, after successfully completing the installation of the plant on 10th November, with the assistance of the production team from the Nevis Water Department and the Nevis Water Resources Management Unit. The other expert, representing Adage Technologies, the vendor for the plant, located also in Georgia, USA, was successful in testing and commissioning the water treatment plant also on the 10th November, and importantly, has trained the Nevis team in the operations, maintenance, and monitoring of the plant. Please be reminded that the entire water operations at Hamilton site consists of water flowing from a water well, supplying, and this is important, 230 imperial gallons per minute, through the filtration system, which then goes into the brand new 400,000 gallon aqua store tank at the site before it is gravity fed into the water system for use by consumers. To fully complete the upgrade at Hamilton Reservoir site, the property will be fenced, and the old water tank, which was built in 1904, would be recommissioned after a new steel frame roof is installed. We would want, ladies and gentlemen, to congratulate profusely the Honorable Spencer Brand, Minister with responsibility for water, and his team at the Ministry of Water Services, the Nevis Water Department, and the Water Resources Management Unit for a successful installation and commissioning of this all-important state-of-the-art plant. Ms. Tonya Bartlett, our manager of the Nevis Water Department, a young woman that we're very proud of, her production team, young Clishawn Wilson, Gavin Walters, Erin Herbert, and Glenn Joseph. Mr. Roger Hanley, operations manager of the Nevis Water Department, and Mr. Floyd Robinson, water resources manager, must all be commended for their hard work and dedication in ensuring a successful commissioning of the water treatment plant. And ladies and gentlemen, I can proudly announce that we are now with this plant putting an additional 300,000 gallons of water per day into the water system here in Nevis. An additional 300,000 gallons of water per day into the system here in Nevis. Our total production of water, therefore, with the addition of this new water stands at 2.3 million gallons per day. To put that in context for you, I'm advised by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Works with responsibility for water that our average daily consumption is 1.6 million gallons per day. Our average daily consumption is 1.6 million gallons. That is, of course, in normal circumstances. And so, with this addition of water of some 300,000 gallons per day, we have moved our supply by some 15%, up to 2.3 million gallons a day, when compared to an average consumption pattern of 1.6 million gallons per day. It suggests that we're moving in the right direction in terms of greater water security on the island of Nevis. I think that commissioning of that well and the treatment plant that we invested significantly in and were able to deliver despite the challenges of COVID is a quantum leap forward for water production here on the island of Nevis. And as I've said, it adds 15% to our water supply on the island. To add one other statistic, you are all aware that we would have done a CDB water enhancement program. The CDB water enhancement program dealt largely with storage and distribution. And so we changed out virtually all of the old and outdated pipes across Nevis. We improved the infrastructure. We improved the flow of water. And we decommissioned and then commissioned brand new storage tanks, which you can see dotted all across the landscape in Nevis. That CDB project is practically at an end. But I'm advised that through our efforts, our storage capacity in brand new tanks has moved pre-project from 2.3 million gallons to post-project 3.1 million gallons. So at this moment, as I speak, we have the ability in Nevis to store 3.1 million gallons of water in our tanks, newly commissioned and newly installed. Bear in mind as well that we have indicated that the old tank at Hamilton will be brought back on stream once we are able to put that new roof on that particular tank. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is good news for the island, that we did a moderate increase in water rates during the last budget, and I know that there was some complaint because that is the nature of things. But I believe that our people can really see what we have been doing with the little bit that we collect through the water department. We have been doing an amazing job in terms of delivering water and ensuring that our people have access to this critical resource. Again, kudos to Minister Brand, P.S. Ernie Stapleton, and the entire team. A sad note as I speak about water is to express our deep and heartfelt condolences to the family of Mr. Brian Kennedy. If you're Nevision and you've been on Nevis over the past 30, 40 years, I'm sure you must have known Mr. Kennedy. He passed away, we advised, on Wednesday, the 11th of November, at the age of 89 years old. Mr. Kennedy was a certified professional water engineer. He contributed significantly to the water sector on Nevis, having served in several capacities over the years, including engineer manager of the Nevis Water Department, 1985 to 1999, water development engineer, Ministry of Public Utilities et al., 2006 to 2010, engineer consultant to the Nevis Water Supply Enhancement Project, funded by the CDB and the Nevis Island Administration, 2011 to 2020. He will have also worked with regional water utility companies over the years. The island of Nevis has benefited tremendously from Mr. Brian Kennedy's rich experience and vast knowledge of the water sector. May his soul rest in peace. Members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to move to a very, very important project. In fact, I would say a marquee project for this government, which is the park at Pinnis. The Pinnis Park update, as of this month, tells us that art Art, A-R-T, in the park. That project is currently in progress. What is Art in the Park? Well, top island artists such as Vaughn Anslin, Gary Wade, Leon Silcott, Jimmy Simmons, Luciano Freeman, and Dinsey Ryan have all agreed to lead the project, where they will paint depictions of Pinnis Beach and other aspects of island life on the perimeter fence of the Pinnis Park. Government agencies, schools, Pinnis Beach restaurants, and other entities have all been invited to participate. Construction work at the Pinnis Park as of today stands at 34.5% completed, according to the project manager. Approval has been received for the visitor center. Footings have been dug and work is being done on the foundation of the visitor center. The amphitheater, public bathrooms, and parking lot on the north side are almost complete. Thus far, I'm advised that we have about 50 persons employed on that particular project. The Ministry of Tourism hosted, in what I thought was an excellent initiative, 31 of their colleagues from the Ministry of Tourism in St. Kitts on Friday the 20th of November. During this visit, our brothers and sisters from St. Kitts participated in an island tour as well as professional development activities. Both the Honorable Lindsay Grant and I were in attendance, particularly for lunch over at the Heritage Village, where we were treated to local fungi, cornmeal, done on a local coal pot, and local baked bread, penny bread as we used to call it, when a penny was still worth something. And that bread was served with the traditional red butter that we all enjoyed as a child. Whether it is good for us is a different story, but we all certainly enjoyed it as a child. And certainly it took us back in time, and our brothers and sisters from St. Kitts loved it. And so at the Heritage Village, many of them were not aware and had never been to the Heritage Village. Many of them had not been to some of the sites. In fact, I was very impressed when I heard them say that they all sought to put their feet in the hot springs at Bath, just to say that they had experienced it. And we, of course, welcome them to come back with their families and spend the weekend. I continue, of course, to say that this is our country. St. Kitts and Nevis together, two beautiful islands. We have a lot to offer. And whilst we encourage the world to come and see what we have, too many of us who are right here don't know what we have because we don't pay any attention to what we have. And so it's important, even at my now advanced middle age, I am trying my best to learn St. Kitts, to go to different places in St. Kitts, and I encourage our Kittitian brothers and sisters to come over and learn Nevis. Nothing hurts me more than when I talk to friends in St. Kitts who say they have never been to Nevis or they have not been in 20 years or 30 years. It means that when they do come, they'll get lost. So we're encouraging our brothers and sisters to come and also encouraging the people of Nevis to learn more. Let us learn about our own country. Let us enjoy our own country. You can't promote your country to outsiders if you yourself don't know it. So when our colleagues and friends and brothers and sisters come over and they discover treasures like the Heritage Village, I am delighted that we're able to facilitate. Now this exchange, which was the brainchild of the permanent secretaries, in St. Kitts, Mrs. Carleen Morton, in Nevis, Mr. John Hanley, and their teams, will now see the Nevis Tourism Ministry of Tourism staff journeying to St. Kitts on Friday the 27th, that's tomorrow. And they're going to go over for a reciprocal trip, the highlight of which I'm told will be the scenic railway tour. And so this, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're seeking to do. We're seeking to get both ministries of tourism to understand better the product that is being offered in each island, so that when St. Kitts talks about the Federation, they have intimate knowledge and accurate knowledge of what is offered not only at Black Rocks, but at the Heritage Village. Not only on the scenic railway, but at the Artisan Village in Nevis. They can speak eloquently not only to the Strip, but to Pinnis Beach. And vice versa. when the tourism officials in Nevis speak, they can speak eloquently to all the attractions that are available in St. Kitts as well. This familiarization, this immersion in what we are doing nationally is very important. And I want to thank my brother, the Honorable Lindsey Grant, for his wisdom in seeing the relevance of this type of approach as we continue to seek to make our way in an increasingly difficult tourism market. With COVID, we all understand the difficulties. But I believe that this is a giant step forward, and I commend all who have been involved in this collaboration and harmonization of efforts moving forward. In terms of COVID updates, I can confirm that there are 10 taxi operators on Nevis that have been issued the Travel Assured Seal. These have been certified by the COVID-19 Compliance Task Force to convey international visitors coming to Nevis and would have had to implement various anti-COVID measures, such as the installation of plexiglass barriers in the buses, in the taxis. 2 water taxi services have also been approved for the seal, and there are currently, I'm advised, 9 entities awaiting inspection, and we hope to get to those very shortly. A note, ladies and gentlemen, of some concern, and I would hope that the press would help me to amplify this concern. And that has to do with what I would consider very reckless and selfish behavior on the part of some of our people. Some of our people have jet skis and other motorized craft. We all recall some years ago a very tragic and terrible accident where a young visitor was killed swimming in the area of Pinnis Beach by a motorized vessel. We have since taken steps to improve safety and security at the beach so that when our people go, they are safe. And those of you who now frequent the beach would see at the more popular beaches, we now have swim zones, we now have lifeguards, and we're in the process now of installing lifeguard huts so that our lifeguards can have a better vantage point. Those swim zones need to be respected. They're there for the protection of all. And I was very alarmed when we got reports that there have been several complaints of persons using jet skis and other motorized craft in the swim zones at Pinnis. We are strongly cautioning those persons to desist from such reckless behavior, because all of us must work together to seek to safeguard the safety and security of our beach users. And so, members of the press, members of the public, those of you who are out there who are operating jet skis and other motorized craft, please stay outside the swim zones. You have the whole ocean to play with. You need not come inside the swim zones, which are the areas closest to shore. When you do so, you endanger people's lives. And I'm asking and imploring our people to exercise the necessary good sense. What might be fun to you could prove to be tragic for someone who happens to be in the water at the time when you come along with your jet ski or with your boat. The zones are clearly marked. There is no excuse why individuals would trespass in the no-swim zones. And so I'm asking, please, our people to be vigilant and to be sensible, and for all beachgoers to jointly condemn such reckless behavior. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have the 25 Most Remarkable Teens Award Ceremony. It will be held in St. Kitts, and it starts at 6:30. 8 Nevision teens will be awarded, and the ceremony will be carried live on the Department of Youth in Nevis on our Facebook page. We commend, of course, all of the awardees in this initiative that has now gone on for several years, where we publicly celebrate our remarkable teens. The Department of Sports is reminding the general public that the Nevis Netball Association is currently having its Netball is Back tournament. Netball is being played Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at the Brownhill Court, beginning at 6 p.m. And based on the traffic that I see there, it appears that netball is really indeed back. And so I commend all who are trying to resuscitate the sport of netball on the island of Nevis. If I can switch to the Ministry of Education, I would want to report that based on all the reports that have come to my office, the school system is operating well thus far. You will recall, of course, because of the challenges of COVID, our schools were closed for an extended period, and we were only able to reopen recently. We were only able to reopen after considerable sums had been spent to better prepare our schools in light of the protocols that COVID now demand. We are pleased that those efforts have gone well thus far. I emphasize every time I speak of COVID thus far because we understand that it is an entirely fluid situation. But I am pleased at the fact that our children have returned to school and that the system thus far appears to be working. Commendations to Minister Troy Liburd, P.S. Barrett, P.O. Claxton, and the entire team in the Ministry and Department of Education, all of our principals and all of our teachers who are toiling in the classroom every day. Commendations to all for this incredible effort here on the island of Nevis. The Ministry of Education also has some other news. They are delighted to report that they are about to welcome another volunteer from Taiwan. You recall that in my last press conference I spoke of the fact that we had taken the bold initiative in Nevis to start to teach Mandarin in our schools. And that is being done through an expert Mandarin teacher from Taiwan. We are now preparing to accept our latest volunteer, Miss Pei Swang Sai. Is the second volunteer from Taiwan in the space of 2 months to join the Ministry of Education. Miss Sai graduated from National Taiwan Normal University in 2019, where she majored in nutrition science and education. Her work experience includes a substitute teacher at Chin Shing Academy, where she taught English and health education from grades 1 to grade 6. She will work very closely with Mrs. Renel David, who is our school meals coordinator. They will work on improving the program, that is our school meals program, and also the already high-quality meals that are cooked and served to our students. She will be involved in planning and executing programs, especially geared towards parents of students in healthy lifestyles and nutrition. She's currently in quarantine, and once released from quarantine, will join our team. And ladies and gentlemen, again, these are many things that we take for granted and that perhaps go unnoticed. But as part of our Healthier Lifestyles initiative and as part of our thrust to say to our people that if we eat right, we engage in moderate exercise, we avoid excesses, that we can lead longer and more productive lives and delay the onset of illness, particularly non-communicable diseases. Hypertension, diabetes, things like obesity. They lead to no ends of difficulties for our health system. Morbidity, kidney failure, need for dialysis, amputations. All of these are caused by what some consider to be lifestyle diseases. And so we continue to preach that $1 of prevention is worth the pain and the $1 million of cure. And so we encourage our people to do the right things and to behave responsibly. If you drink alcohol, we hope you wouldn't, but if you decide to drink alcohol, do so moderately. See if you can get some exercise each day. Walk instead of taking the bus sometimes. Walk instead of driving sometimes. When you're going to eat, I like cook up like the next person, but don't pile your plate too high. Eat not for a full belly, but eat to get you to the next meal, so that you can keep that weight off that obesity leads to all kinds of problems. And this government has pioneered here on the island of Nevis a nutritional component to our school meals program. Why? Because the idea behind it is that if our children get accustomed to eating properly at a young age, they will carry those behaviors with them into adulthood. Not only that, they will go home, and when they see mommy using too much butter and too much salt, they will say, no, 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 you can't do that, that's bad. Teacher said that's bad. So we are seeking to change behavior from a very young age. One of the innovations is that we hired a trained chef, Mr. Michael Henville, whose task it was to go around and work with our schools' kitchens all around the island to increase the knowledge and also the preparation and the techniques for food. We have Mrs. Rennell Daniel. I almost said David. David was who she used to be. She has now become Daniel. Mrs. Rennell Daniel, who heads now that school meals program. And see, we are now adding a volunteer from Taiwan who's a nutritionist. So the idea really is that when your children go to school and they get a meal in school, you have, and we are asking that you have the necessary confidence that that meal is a nutritious meal, balanced meal, and that our children are being properly taken care of in terms of their diet at school. And so I am very, very proud of what I consider a very innovative approach to fighting NCDs and changing lifestyles and changing behavior. I end, ladies and gentlemen, by indicating that the Nevis World Heritage Committee, which was launched in 2017 under the chairmanship of Mrs. Evelyn Henville, with the goal of being the inscription of the city of Charleston as a World Heritage Site. I think we have spoken about that before. In 2018, the International Council on Monuments and Sites, ICOMOS, visited Nevis to start the World Heritage upstream process with a review of Charlestown. As you are all aware, we did not make the grade. They said that there were aspects of Charlestown which had become too modernized and too degraded, so that we did not meet the standards. However, the report, whilst it said that the entire city of Charleston was not recommended for inscription, key historical sites in Charleston and around the island did receive sufficient report of authenticity and integrity. And so, with much determination and motivation, the committee reconvened in 2019 with the intent to build a case for Nevis. The committee returned to UNESCO with an updated list of heritage sites to warrant a second visit by ICOMOS, or ICOMOS. I'm not sure how you pronounce the acronym, but it means the International Council on Monuments and Sites. The ICOMOS report further highlighted the thematic areas of our history, such as sugar and slavery, as having the potential of meeting the requirements of outstanding universal value. With this guidance, the Nevis World Heritage Committee proposed the Nevis, Charlestown and its Environs project to document potential heritage sites around the island for inclusion on a national list to be approved by Parliament. Using the recommendations of ICOMOS from their previous visit, the committee recorded all heritage sites by parishes so as to include all of our communities. Then sites on this list which meet the criteria for inscription as UNESCO World Heritage Sites will be selected. The development of this list is also in collaboration with our colleagues on St. Kitts, and we would want to thank the Honorable John L. Powell, my good friend, for his participation in this. The NIA is committed to creating greater national and international awareness of the cultural heritage of our lovely Nevis, and incorporating the preservation of our history into our national development planning. The successful nomination and recognition of Nevis as a UNESCO World Heritage Site will enhance its appeal as a tourist destination. The imprimatur of the UNESCO symbol at each heritage site will give a big boost to the tourism sector and ensure that Nevis, Charlestown and its environs remain a meaningful place for current and future generations to visit and learn. The project will highlight the importance of Nevis's cultural heritage to the rest of the world. It will raise awareness at the local level, including the civil society, youth, cultural societies, educational institutions, tourism promotional authorities, and hotels. It will also raise awareness at the regional and international levels among tourism operators, with huge potential benefits for those operators who deal exclusively with World Heritage sites and which offer highly specialized programs for international hotel groups, academic institutions, heritage and historical committees, and heritage conservation projects. The Nevis Heritage and Conservation Trust is and will be a tool to seek to achieve the objectives that I have outlined. Ladies and gentlemen, I have sought to provide you with a snapshot of where we are since the last press conference, and I now invite your questions, if any, for me, and I will try my best, as I always do, to respond to those questions. Thank you.
Good morning. Monique Washington, St. Kitts Nevis, Observer newspaper.
Good morning, Ms. Washington.
A couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister said that the federal government has allotted a certain amount of money for the COVID-19 vaccine when it becomes available. When the vaccine becomes available, how much of it will be designated, or what percentage of it will be designated to Nevis? And will the NIA set aside its own set of money for the vaccine? Now, some drug companies said that they will have the vaccine ready as early as December. Now, that is with less than 1 year of human trials. How comfortable are you as Premier in having this drug administered to the people of Nevis? Can you give us an update on the universal health insurance? And can we get an update on the works being done at Nevlec? And has the company hired a new general manager as yet? Now, with the unfortunate passing of Miss Judy Hanley and the situation with the Nevlec live wire, what is Nevlec doing to ensure that this never happens again? And what responsibility has the NIA and or Nevlec taken in the death of Ms. Hanley? Now, this year you've spoken about a draft policy coming soon for a retirement plan for non-established workers. Can you give us an update on that? I'm almost finished. Now, Nevlec has begun disconnections on persons who are not paying. Now, given the current situation with persons out of work and things like that, is there not another way that affected persons can keep their electricity? This past week or 2 days ago, the company Dole recalled their romaine lettuce because of the presence of E. coli. They asked that everyone who have this lettuce in their refrigerator discard of it. Now, as the Minister of Health, has the supermarkets been advised to get rid of all their romaine lettuce because of the E. coli spread? And that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Washington, as always, you asked enough questions to fill the entire press conference. I don't know what I would do if you weren't here. I've been talking to myself. But I thank you very much. You're here every week, and you always have some excellent questions. So, let me start where you started about the vaccine. We're all excited about the information that we've had thus far, that a vaccine is coming. I think that whilst we continue to preach good hygiene, washing hands, using hand sanitizer, coughing into our elbow, physical distancing, wearing a mask, that at the end of the day, the statistics suggest that we continue to get cases of COVID globally, and even here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Since the borders have reopened, we have, as you all know, had 3 new cases. So we have to be vigilant, and the conventional wisdom suggests that vaccination could provide the answer, as it did with polio, as it did with other diseases, that it could provide the answer to help us overcome this global pandemic. We are hearing through the news that the vaccine should be available by December 2020, and you have asked a very important question about how that vaccine will be distributed naturally, what we are doing here in the Federation. Now, the lead on this has been and is being taken at the federal level. And that is why it is the federal government that has engaged in terms of making a deposit to secure vaccines. And as I understand it, it is almost as if there's a queue. And you make your deposit in order for you to be in that queue, so that when the vaccine does become available, you will have access to it. How much of that is going to come to Nevis? That discussion has not occurred. Will Nevis allocate its own funding if necessary? I believe, Ms. Washington, you should know and the public should know that I, as Premier, will do everything that I need to do to ensure that the people of Nevis are safe. And so if it comes to that, and we have to make funds available, then we'll simply have to find those funds to ensure that the people of Nevis are safe. Having said that, I go back to where I started to say that this is a federal effort being led by the Ministry of Health on St. Kitts. My understanding is that in the initial phase, we will seek to vaccinate some 20% of our population. And that 20% will largely comprise those who are most vulnerable. The elderly, those who have underlying conditions, and of course those who are on our front line, our police officers, our nursing, our health staff, etc. Now, I'm sure that more accurate information on that will in due course be forthcoming from the Minister of Health in St. Kitts, the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet. She too, I hope, will give an update either through herself or through the Honorable Eugene Hamilton at the federal level, who's charged with the universal health insurance scheme that has been proposed. The last conversation I had with Minister Hamilton, I know that good progress is being made, and I believe that you should have an announcement coming soon. That will, Ms. Washington, be a matter for him to make that necessary announcement. But we have all agreed, certainly at both cabinets, federal and NIA, that some form of universal health coverage is actually desirable and will solve a lot of problems that we've had where individuals fall ill and do not have the resources to go overseas or to get the care that they deserve. Going back for a moment to the vaccine, you asked the question that everybody is asking. Is the vaccine safe? Is it safe? Is it okay for me to take the vaccine because it's new? And all that I can say is that all the technical advice that I have seen thus far says that the vaccine, once it gets to market, will be safe. Because while the processes have been expedited, the rigor of the testing has not been compromised. And that whatever vaccine comes will have the full backing of agencies such as the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control in the United States, and national and international agencies, such as we hope we see the WHO, PAHO, and those coming out in support of those vaccines. And so we will not administer vaccines simply because Pfizer or some other company says that their vaccine is good. We will administer vaccines when the international agencies charged with assuring the world that these vaccines are acceptable tell us that they are acceptable. And so I do not think that our public should have any concern. We are, have been, and will continue to be a responsible government that is charged with ensuring that our people are safe. And you can take that to the bank, that that is how we will operate on this particular matter. An update on Nevlec. I'm told that the work that was being done at Nevlec, which occasioned some outages because, of course, whilst that work was in train, we had some engines having some difficulty, that work is ongoing, but that the outages, which we call unplanned outages, have really now abated. And so the outcry that we had has thankfully been averted for the moment, and Nevlec appears now to be back on a reasonably steady footing. You mentioned a young lady who passed away tragically. I would have mentioned her earlier. And she came into contact, we are told, with a live electricity line. And you say, what can we do to make sure it never happens again? And I wish I could tell you, Ms. Washington, that we could do something to say that an accident will never happen again. But truly, An accident by its nature is an accident. It's not planned. It is something that happens. And so if there's high wind, if a vehicle were to bang into an electricity pole and causes live wires to come cascading down to the ground, and you happen or I happen to be there, then it is possible that an accident can occur. You ask, has NEVLEC and the NIA accepted responsibility? What I can say is that we have visited. We have been in touch with the family. We are doing what we can to assist. But in terms of responsibility for what happened, that obviously would have to be a matter for the investigators to determine how this tragic accident happened. But let us have no doubt that it was an accident and there was no willful or reckless behavior on anybody's part here, and that this young woman has lost her life in really the most tragic of circumstances. And my heart goes out to her family who mourn her even as we speak. The retirement plan for the NE workers, again, this is a matter that is being dealt with at the federal level, and we would hope to move this long-awaited process forward very shortly. And I'm certain, Ms. Washington, in the new year, we will hear more about what's happening in relation to greater security for our NE workers once they've retired. NEVLEC disconnection. You say, is there another way? I was hoping whilst you asked, you might have suggested another way. And I just want to be clear about this, because I have seen some political hubbub about it as well. They say we are disconnecting people for not paying electricity in this difficult time. It is true that NEVLEC has recommenced its disconnection. It is true that all of us know that we are responsible for paying for the electricity that we consume. It is true that since the onset of COVID, this government has caused its various state-owned agencies such as NEVLEC, Solid Waste, Land and Housing, to incur significant losses because we have said as part of our cushion, some have called it a stimulus, to help our people in this difficult period, that NEVLEC, for example, would have reduced by 50% some of the outstanding amounts owed by consumers. But the reality, Ms. Washington, is that not even the most cynical of individuals could think that we can continue to do that indefinitely. And what we found out is that even some whose income was not affected by COVID, and there's some of us, public servants being in that category, who got paid every week, every month, as the case may be, on time, the same amount. So they were not in the category of the hotel worker, or the restaurant worker, or the taxi driver, or the tour operator. They continued to be paid. If you worked at the bank, you continued to get your monthly salary as normal. But what we found was happening is that some of those people say, oh, we're not going to pay NEVLEC either. COVID is here. So whilst the times were not hard for them in the sense that they continued to get their income as normal, they decided not paying either. So NEVLEC then had a real problem because, let's face it, NEVLEC is a business. And to generate electricity that we all want and enjoy, and which is a necessity for all of us, NEVLEC has to buy diesel from Delta. NEVLEC has to run its engines and pay for their upkeep. NEVLEC has to buy all the lubricating oils that they use on the engines. NEVLEC has to pay its staff. And how is NEVLEC to do any of that if NEVLEC cannot get an income? Stimulus or cushion is designed for those, Ms. Washington, who most need it, the most vulnerable. Not for others who decide, I am not paying, but rather for others who cannot afford to pay. And NEVLEC's position has always been, we prefer to collect than to disconnect. And so my advice to persons out there who have received a notice of disconnection is to go into the NEVLEC office and come to some arrangement with them. Because the government has been clear to NEVLEC that you must be prudent and sensible in terms of your approach on this matter. But Nevlec has to generate revenue if Nevlec is to stay afloat and if Nevlec is to be able to deliver electricity services to our island. It's really as simple as that. And we have gone as far as we could go. We have borrowed. We have done all that we can to keep these agencies offering some form of comfort and cushion to our people for the past several months. We really cannot do any more, Ms. Washington. We are at the end of our capacity for freeness at this point. It is really time now for those who can pay to pay, and those who consume to pay for what they consume. And that is all that Nevlec is saying. We're not seeking to be heartless or difficult. I think throughout this process, this government has bent over backwards to show our people that we genuinely care. And we have sought in various ways to lead from the front. My ministers, for example, cabinet, took a pay cut for several months. I have not taken a salary as Premier since March of this year. Simple, yes. Symbolic, perhaps. But the idea really was to show that we care, that we understand, and that we understand the difficulty that our people are now enduring as a result of COVID. But our people also, I think, have to appreciate that they cannot continue indefinitely to get free electricity and free water, especially those who are well able to pay because they've had no impact on their income. I'll give you an example, related but different. The banks, for example, said you could have a moratorium on paying your mortgage. If you were impacted by COVID, the banks, through negotiations with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, you could get a moratorium on paying your loans. You know, there are people whose income was never affected. They get paid every month, same way. Say they stop paying their mortgage. Why? Why? These relief measures are intended for people who need the relief. So if your income is $4,000 a month, because you're middle management in the civil service, for example, and you have a loan at the Bank of Nevis of $1,500 per month, COVID has not affected your income because every public servant has been paid on time in St. Kitts and in Nevis since this COVID pandemic started. We are proud that to date we have been able to maintain no one has been laid off. So if you are that worker, you continue to collect your $4,000 a month as usual, why would you go in and decide that you're not going to pay your mortgage? You want moratorium. Moratorium for what? These are some of the things that I think our people need to consider. So some of our people here, okay, you're getting some relief at Nevlec. Well, I'm not paying Nevlec. I'm not going to pay water, even though they are not the ones who are most vulnerable. So I just want to make that point very clear, that Nevlec prefers to collect than to disconnect. And anybody who finds themselves on a disconnection list, I am asking you please to go in and speak to the good people at Nevlec, the customer service and billing department. They will take care of you. Dole recalling lettuce. I confess, Ms. Washington, that I wasn't aware of this. But I'm hopeful that with the explosion of lettuce production on the island of Nevis since COVID, that we don't have any Dole romaine lettuce on our shelves. I'm hopeful. Certainly I would expect that the good people at Consumer Affairs would be mindful of this. I confess that I myself was not aware, but that they will be mindful of this and that they will ensure that they go and visit the necessary supermarkets to ensure that we don't have any of E. coli type lettuce on our shelves. But perhaps this is a good segue for me to once again encourage our people to buy local and eat local. You know why? I never hear no lettuce in Nevis have E. coli yet. I have never heard any lettuce in Nevis has E. coli, but every once in a while you see on the news E. coli outbreak in the United States or elsewhere. That sends a message to us. You have lettuce grown here, you know the supplier, you know the grower. Eat your local lettuce. Well, you want lettuce from Minnesota or Minneapolis or wherever it is they come from. What do you want that for? When young Mr. Paris over there in Prospect growing the most beautiful lettuce in a shade house. Young Anthony Gager, Mackie Truss, young Najee for Panko. These are young people all involved in agriculture. This renaissance that we're experiencing in agriculture in Nevis. But it cannot last if we still have romaine lettuce from Dole on the shelves in our supermarkets. So I'm hopeful that this is a further wake-up call to us to eat local, buy local, support our local farmers. We know the quality is better. We know that it's safer. And I go back to what I said. Never heard any E. coli and any lettuce produced in Nevis. And so I hope when our people go to the supermarkets, they will say to Rams and to Value Mart and to Best Buy and to others, I hope that this lettuce is locally produced lettuce. I hope that these tomatoes are locally produced tomatoes. I hope this sweet potato, where the minister says we've had an increase in production of over 2,000% since our stimulus in Nevis was geared primarily towards agriculture. I hope these sweet potatoes come from right here in Nevis. Let us continue to support our farmers and to eat local. And if we do that, Ms. Washington, you would never have to ask me a question about Dole and their lettuce. Any other questions for me?
The General Manager of Denver.
Oh, yes. I'm advised that process is ongoing. As soon as the board advises me, I will advise the press. But that process is ongoing. I'm told there was a vetting process, of course, an interview process that was ongoing. So once I get something confirmed, I will come and confirm with you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good
Jarvis
morning.
Brown from Vaughan Radio.
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
Just two questions, sir. In light of the announcement of the budget, and of course, we all know that COVID has basically decimated economies, and Nevis's economy is no exception. But in light of that, sir, are you at liberty to say if whether the 2021 budget will be free of taxes or be filled with new taxes? That's the first question. And the second question, it surrounds the gender-based violence. I know, of course, that you did mention it, that we observe the observance to eradicate gender-based violence against women. And I know the Honorable Junior Minister, being Hazel Brantley Williams, she would have given an address and spoke in relation to that, and basically advocating to stop the violence in light of COVID, etc. But the question is, in light of that predicament, sir, what is the NIA doing to sort of, kind of diminish that in a sense? Because, people have been shut in, and husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends, etc., they're home, and, there seems to be some sort of friction. So, I mean, this issue has been in the place, and Nevis is no exception. So I just want to know, what is it that the government is perhaps doing to sort of, I don't want to say end that because it can't end, but what is it that the government is, looking to deal with that, sir? And those are my two questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jarvis. Violence and gender-based violence. You said violence against women, but let me make it clear that gender-based violence can also include violence against men. So violence of any kind is clearly to be abhorred, and we have to condemn it whenever it raises its ugly head. But it is a social and societal problem. And COVID, we are told, although we have not yet seen the statistics to support that, there is a theory, let me put it that way, that because persons have been locked down and are now, as one person put it, forced to spend more time together, that has led to friction and has led to an escalation in gender-based violence. I have not yet seen the statistics, but certainly that theory is out there, and I believe that's the theory to which you're speaking. That, like other social ills, is human behavior. And it is always difficult, if not impossible, for any government to regulate human behavior. The government, whether through the ministers, the cabinet, the police, security officials, cannot police everybody's home. We cannot be in each household. We cannot be there each time an argument erupts to ensure that it ends peacefully. And so what we can do as a responsible government is to encourage, and that's what I'm doing here today, encourage our people to behave responsibly. To, as the old people say, keep their hand to themselves. To stop raising their hand, our men folk, at their women folk and youth. And for the women who are hitting their men to stop that too. We must condemn gender-based violence wherever it occurs, unreservedly. And in our public discourse, not just the Premier of Nevis, but all of us. Because I'm sure, Mr. Jarvis, you hear the nonsense uttered by many, oh, she deserves it. The foolishness we say sometimes, if he no bang me, no love me. We have heard it. I'm not saying anything that ought to be shocking to you. We have heard all of this nonsense. Women who know the tendency of a man to be abusive, but they engage anyway. Last time I said something about that, I asked if they thought they were special, and I got some licks for it. But it's the same theme. You know a man beat the last 6 women he used to be with. But you rush in anyway. Some people should be avoided. If you know somebody is dishonest and has a difficulty leaving other people's property alone, you know that. Well, you're going to entrust them to guard your money. Entrust them to guard your riches. Some of them wanted to get in government, but the public was very clear that we can't trust them to get in government. People know very well the decisions that they make. So, we have to appreciate that we ourselves have to be responsible. And I don't care how much sweet talk the man come with. If you know that he has bad habits, leave him. Let him go about business. And the same for women. If you know a woman beat up she last 6 men, why are you going to put yourself in that purgatory and that predicament? What are you going in there for? Let us start to be responsible. It's a word I know you are sick of hearing from me, but let us start to be responsible. So what is the government doing? The government can do only what the government can do. We can build out the framework. We can engage as we're engaging here in our 16 days of activism. We can bring awareness, campaign relentlessly. But the members of our public need to be willing to receive the information and to change their behavior based on that information. And I am saying here today unreservedly, if you're beating up your woman or your children, stop it. If you're beating up your man or your children, stop it. All forms of gender-based violence have to be condemned. And violence, let us remember, is not always only physical. It could also be psychological abuse, withholding important financial support for the family, causing stress and distress. All of these are things that we must, as one, condemn. And so, I am going to do my part. I would want you, Mr. Jarvis, to do your part, and the members of the press to do their part. Budget, will it be filled with new taxes? I think the answer is no. The advice that we have had from our experts suggests to us that the introduction of new taxes in an environment where the economy is already in downturn would have the opposite effect of what we are seeking to achieve, which is to get our economy restarted and growing again. So I think that you are unlikely to see new taxes in this budget that we hope to read on the 8th of December, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Thank you. Any other questions for me?
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning.
Bart from SK Newsline.
Welcome, Mr. Bart.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you are aware that currently there is a group of young people just outside the entrance of your office or the building. They are trying to bring awareness to what they perceive to be a need for a registry for sexual offenders. They are of the opinion that sexual offenders are being basically let loose to continue committing heinous crimes against young people, men and women, and they're trying to bring awareness to this issue. I understand also that they will be trying to get some audience with relevant authorities to discuss what they perceive to be a very important matter. My question to you is, what is your government's policy position with regards to sexual offenders as well as the need for a sexual offenders registry? That's the first question. Second question, Mr. Premier, is I will assume that the Nevis administration have made their projections for 2021 with regards to economic performance. Could you comment on this? What is your government's perception of what the performance will be like in 2021, given what we know today in the context of the pandemic? And thirdly, can you comment on the CBI program and what has been the impact on Nevis since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bart. In relation to the CBI program and impact on Nevis, that is difficult to quantify because, as I think we all know, that even where a project that is a CBI approved project is done on Nevis, all the necessary fees and due diligence fees, processing fees, registration fees, etc., are paid to the Citizenship by Investment Unit on St. Kitts. And so it will be difficult for me to tell you what the impact has been. I think that falls to the Prime Minister, who handles Citizenship by Investment, to give an indication on that. In Nevis, we have seen some projects continuing, and because of the construct of the Citizenship by Investment program, where, as I said, no matter the development on Nevis, the proceeds go to St. Kitts for purposes of CBI, because that's where the repository of the CBI scheme lies. We have shifted focus on Nevis to a large measure to our own local construction. And so I would have announced months gone by at this very press conference some very far-reaching concessions, for example, to incentivize our people to build. And I'm happy, based on the numbers that I've seen thus far, that our people are responding positively. And this will be the subject of some discussion in the budget in terms of what more we can do, so that Ms. Washington and Ms. Hewlett and others can decide to build their own home if they have not yet done so, and benefit from that and stimulate the economic activity that construction brings. So in Nevis, I think our construct has to be a little different because of how the CBI monies are handled. In relation to projections for 2021, you would forgive me, but today, of course, is not the budget address. And if I were to tell you all that we're going to say on the 8th, you wouldn't bother to come back to cover us on the 8th. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me. We're still putting the document together. The technical people have been working very hard, Permanent Secretary Dorr and the entire team at the Ministry of Finance. And so we hope to unveil a package on the 8th that will take us forward into 2021. And so I will defer the answering of that question until the budget address. You said there's a group outside protesting. Okay, they're trying to bring awareness. I welcome that. In a democracy, that is a good thing. But I'm not sure who they're trying to bring awareness to. Is it you, a member of the press? Is it me, the Premier, since outside my office? Because I've been in office all morning and nobody has come to see me. And I always think that if you want to bring awareness to an issue, your first stop ought to be to he or she that you wish to bring that awareness to. If, of course, you come to me and I ignore or I'm not interested or whatever, then I understand a wider awareness campaign, so to speak. But I'm not so sure why the Premier's office, if you have not even bothered to try to see the Premier. And I came in early this morning. I would have been here at about 8, and I didn't see anybody on the outside. So I have not engaged with anyone. But I would suggest to those who you say are on the outside that they come on the inside and have a conversation and see, for example, how they can partner with us. Because you realize in my opening statement I said that just on Wednesday we launched the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And gender-based violence, yes, speaks to a particular type of violence, but sexual violence against women, against minors, can also broadly fall into that category of gender-based violence, because sexual predatory behavior is also violence. In fact, most people will tell you that crimes such as rape are violent crimes. That's what they are. So they are crimes of violence. So I think that there's room here for collaboration with whoever it is on the outside to come on the inside and work with us, because we are all trying to achieve the same thing. And if you're trying to bring awareness, then why not partner with a government that has demonstrated that it is committed to these very ideas, and let's work together and broaden the number of participants in bringing that awareness. So my suggestion to those on the outside, if they're listening, come inside and talk to us. And if sometime today I go back outside and I see them, I will invite them to come inside and talk to us. Because I think it's important that we get all hands on deck where these issues are concerned. On the specific question about a register for sex offenders, I certainly will be open to that discussion. I would want to hear from those who are proposing what that is intended to achieve. In my own experience, living on this island and in this country for the past half a century, what I would say, Mr. Barth, is that oftentimes in our country we have mechanisms that are in place. The law has something on the books that prevents, that criminalizes, that seeks to detect, that prosecutes, and that punishes certain types of behavior. The problem that we often have is that behavior, bad behavior, goes unpunished because those who are either the victims or the witnesses of that behavior don't come forward. It goes back to my theme about responsibility. Our people need to be more responsible. Many of us jump up and we condemn when we condone similar behavior. I think all of us here. And these are delicate subjects, I know. Some people say political leadership should shy away from anything delicate. But what is a leader if he's not prepared to lead? Even on delicate issues. And there are many homes where we have sexual abuse, where adults in the homes know. But for a variety of reasons, they choose not to say, not to engage. And then everybody says the government must solve the problem. But oftentimes, we don't have the capacity to detect, because these things are happening in the privacy of the home, in the privacy of the office. And so it has at some point for our people to be willing to speak up. And that is why I say those who are on the outside say that they're trying to bring awareness. Come inside and work with us. Let all of us sing from the same hymn sheet. Let all of us say the same things, that we must condemn this type of behavior wherever it raises its head. And whether the person who's doing it is wearing a jacket and tie, or they're wearing boots and going to the construction site, we have to condemn it equally and as forcefully. And the only way we're going to protect our children is if all of us, not some of us, which is very common, Lord, give him a chance. We know that. It's amazing how we sometimes quick to condemn, but when we're put in that situation where we can make the difference, because we can go to court and give that evidence. We can call the authorities and say, our neighbor is doing so and so. Lord, not me, we not get involved in that. That's for the government. Can the Premier be everywhere in Nevis? See everything? Know everything? The answer to that is obviously not. So, Mr. Bart, these are societal problems. And just like COVID, and I like the phrase the Prime Minister keeps using, an all-of-society approach, we need an all-of-society approach to tackle some of these deep-seated social ills that face our communities. And we have to engage, and engage aggressively on these matters together. So those on the outside, again, please come inside and talk to us, and let us see how we can harness our collective energies to make a difference in the community for our people. Are there any other questions? Good morning, Ms. Hewlett.
Logged on and paying attention to what we have to share here today. Okay, Hewlett, Department of Information. We're all aware of that maxim, uneasy lies ahead that wears a crown. Now, I don't think anybody wants to be in positions of a world leader at this point, having to deal with COVID. How has that been for you and your especially your cabinet, dealing with all these related matters and balancing everything else? Also, has there been any movement with regard to geothermal energy on Nevis?
Okay, how's it been? It's been difficult. It's been extremely difficult. It's difficult to sleep at nights, knowing sometimes that you don't have the answers or you don't have all of the answers. And I am not ashamed to say that I didn't have the answers and I don't have all the answers, because there is no way that I could have gone to learn about COVID. There is no course that was being offered at university. There is no bookstore that sold me a manual. And so it has been difficult. And I have, and my cabinet has had to deal with the ever-evolving and fluid situation where COVID is concerned. And I give you an example. We certified taxi operators. Only a few in St. Kitts, and as I said this morning, 10 so far in Nevis. We had our first case of the last 3 came in and used a taxi. That individual then tested positive. What happens to the taxi driver? Does the taxi driver have to be quarantined for 14 days? And if the answer to that is yes, what happens to his little taxi business when for a full half a month he is shut away? Now he would have charged $30 for that taxi ride. If he has to pay for quarantine on St. Kitts, it's $600. In Nevis, it's $500. So imagine you get one taxi fare for the day, $30. Your passenger tests positive for COVID. No fault of yours. You have done all that you could do to protect yourself. But for that $30, you now have to find $500 in Nevis or $600 in St. Kitts to go into quarantine for 14 days. How do you treat with that? These are some of the things that almost pop up on you, because what we have found is that it is impossible for you to predict, forecast every scenario and have a plan for it. So recently, for example, 2 persons that came in on an American Airlines flight tested positive. The systems worked. I want to be clear that the systems worked because those persons were tested because the negative test that they had produced, there were some concerns. So we tested them, and they tested positive. Now, what happened? You had to go find everybody who was on that plane. All of whom, because remember it's a prerequisite to come, you must have a negative test. So all of whom would have uploaded their negative test already. But because they were now on the plane, so somebody said, well, those 2 people were up in first class, 2A and 2B. I was down in 32A and 32B. I was socially and physically distant from them. Why do I have to test? And then the answer comes, well, the ventilation system in the plane, you might have touched the same surface as you went in or went out, as the case may be. And so you had to now find everybody who was seated on that plane to test them. I'm told that some of them were at hotels. That is, not the 2 individuals. Thankfully, those 2 individuals were nationals in the sense, I say thankfully, meaning that they were in quarantine at a quarantine site. So it wasn't about them so much. They were isolated. It was about the others. So, Mr. Bart, you happen to be sitting next to somebody. You don't know that they have COVID. They test positive. You have gone about your business because you presented your negative test to get on the flight. And then 2 days after you've gone about your business, you're told, Mr. Bart, come. You have to be tested. So I'm told some of these people, passengers, were at the hotels. So you could imagine the job of the hotel staff to go on the beach and say, Mr. Smith, you and Mrs. Smith and young Johnny and young Mary, you have to get back to your room because somebody who was on the flight that you came in on tested positive. I say that to say that these are all evolving situations. So the question of how you deal with it is extremely difficult because what might work today and you think you have a good plan, by tomorrow something happens and you realize the holes in that plan you had today, you have to adjust. And with every adjustment, people say, oh, you're injecting uncertainty and this is difficult. And that is part of what makes it so difficult in this particular era. I will say, Ms. Hewlett, that no leader before us in our region has had to contend with difficulties of this magnitude, except perhaps outside the 2 great wars that were fought. In terms of day-to-day difficulties, how do you keep an island like Nevis afloat when our principal economic earner is tourism, and that has been closed now for 9 months? Hundreds of people out of work. Our restaurants are closed because there are no tourists. Our fishermen who have their lobsters to sell and their snappers to sell don't have the same market because the hotels aren't buying, they're closed. There's some restaurants that even as I stand here today have not reopened their doors. I can think of Bananas, I can think of Gin Trap as 2. What about the people who work there? The manager, the chefs, the servers. These are real life hard issues that we have to contend with. So something was drawn to my attention recently where some natural neighbor of extreme negativity put out that all the people laid off at 4 Seasons, the government should hire them. Sounds easy to say. But you're going to hire them to pay them with what? And I'm not trying to sound cynical. This is some of the real talk that we need to have with each other. I'm going to hire them to pay them with what? Because the little income that the government relies on here in Nevis, which comes primarily from tourism, that tap has been turned off for the last 9 months. The borders closed in March, and with the borders closing, tourism closed. The industry shut down. At this time of year, Thanksgiving, Nevis would have been chock-a-block of people, full, bursting at the seams. Instead of that, I'm told there are 100 and something people at Four Seasons. I don't know how many are at Paradise. And most of the other hotels on Nevis are still closed to international guests. I don't know how many would be at Park Hyatt or at the Royal St. Kitts, because Marriott is still closed, Koi has not yet reopened. So, these are the harsh realities that we're dealing with. And I can't stand here and pretend that there is some magic pill or magic bullet, or there's some panacea for solving all of these issues, because each day I get up and we have to tackle fresh issues or new iterations of old issues. And the examples I've used were just used to try and highlight some of the things that can happen that forces us then to go back into meetings again and get further advice to determine how we respond to the new reality. Because COVID has taught us that every day is something new. So that's where we are. Geothermal energy, I think that we are making good progress. The piece of that puzzle that was always the bugbear was the financing. The CDB, Caribbean Development Bank, has been very, very helpful to us. They've been involved with us now. And we have a new company involved called Albioma, A-L-B-I-O-M-A. And of course, the holder of the concession for Nevis is a company called NREI, Nevis Renewable Energy International. They have been working along with a local group headed by our legal advisor, Helen Lewis, also Dr. Ernie Stapleton, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Works, and of course Minister Brand, Spencer Brand, who's the local minister. So there's been an ongoing discussion. That discussion has also included NEVLEC, which will be the off-taker of the power. And so we are hopeful, Ms. Hewlett, that after all this delay and all this time, that we will have some good news to announce in short order. The last I was told is that the revised documentation for geothermal, that we were going through the final iterations of that. There's been some new negotiations. I believe that you will recall that when we negotiated this in the first instance, the NIA got 12.5% equity in the project, and then on top of that we got a 10% royalty, because geothermal extraction, we treated it like any other mineral. We have had to go back now to look at that, because the designation of royalty was not sitting so well with agencies that would provide funding, but funding on the basis that every penny of saving had to be passed on to the consumer. So we have had to go back to the drawing board to look and see how we do not dilute the interests of the people of Nevis, because that's what the government represents, the people of Nevis. But at the same time, we pass on the maximum savings to them. I can tell you that based on the negotiations thus far, an initial price per kilowatt hour of 19 US cents has been renegotiated down to 15 US cents, and we're still working to see if we can bring that down even further. That will be important in terms of the cost to the consumer of the project over its life. But we are continuing to work, and NEVLEC has been very instrumental in assisting us with that work in terms of what is feasible. So we have already achieved some significant progress on those renegotiations for the benefit always of the people of Nevis, and that's what we are seeking to do. So I would hope to have more detailed information once we have come to some conclusion on these negotiations in terms of what the key points are going to be. But what I've highlighted in terms of ownership, royalty, and price, those three areas are areas that we have been working on together to come to that understanding.
Just one last question back on retirement. Places like NEVLEC and NCDF and NHLDC, I'm not sure if they fall under non-established workers, but is there a retirement plan set for them?
You have to speak to their boards, Ms. Washington. But the truth is that they would not fall under non-established workers. Those are people employed, the statutory bodies, and the retirement plans would be as those statutory bodies would obviously prescribe. The question as to whether there is something in place, I will need to check and come back to you on that and what the terms of that might be. But those entities are obviously managed through boards, and those boards are responsible for those entities in their entirety, including any retirement plans and ensuring that those retirement plans are healthy and adhered to. Any further questions for me, Mr. Bart?
This is a follow-up to the question posed by Ms. Hewlett with regards to the geothermal issue. Geothermal in the Caribbean has been going on for quite some time. St. Lucia in the 1980s dabbled with it very unsuccessfully, and I think it is unsuccessful up to this point. Several other islands have dabbled in it as well, and without much success. What makes you think that Nevis is going to be successful at this attempt, given all the intricacies and difficulty in sourcing funding, the expense of actually creating a well and a productive well? What is going to be different? What's different that makes you think that Nevis is going to be successful?
Well, because it's Nevis, and Nevis is synonymous with success, Mr. Bart. I believe that when you look at the other projects that you speak about in the region, not many of them have got to the stage where Nevis has now reached. In St. Lucia, for example, based on what I'm aware of, you may have better knowledge than me, they were still at an exploratory phase. We have already done the exploratory phase in Nevis. The exploratory wells have already been dug. The drilling has occurred. The flow tests have been performed. The chemistry tests have been performed. The heat has been analyzed. The necessary steam has been analyzed. And a company called Geothermics produced a report which stated categorically that in the opinion of the experts, Nevis had a commercial grade viable geothermal resource. So we are not now at this level of speculation about Nevis. What has bedeviled us in Nevis in the context of geothermal has largely been our size. I have met with quite a number of potential financiers, private sector financiers, who have in large measure said, with only 13,000 people, this project here is too risky for us. We need size, we need a larger population, larger consumer base. We need to spread that risk across a larger number of people. And that has been problematic for us. It is one of the deficiencies that you get when you're as small as we are. We had one big company, for example, BlackRock Securities, who at the end of the day said that this was simply too small a project to interest them. And so, belatedly, we have gone back to the drawing board and said, well, if we can't finance this through private equity firms and hedge funds and all of these who provide financing, the banks, can we then go to various agencies such as the CDB and find out if we can access through them concessionary funds that might be available out there? That, as you know, is a long process. And that process requires a tremendous level of work and commitment to bring them to fruition. And while there are funds available, Green Climate Fund, for example, and others, to provide support for projects such as this, they come with their own sets of conditions. And one, as I highlighted, was the royalty issue. Everywhere in the world, it is customary for governments who have a resource to get a royalty. So it's gold, if it's diamonds, if it's oil, you get a royalty. So this is a resource that Nevis has, and Nevis should get a royalty. But the funding that comes to some of these agencies has attached to that funding the need for any saving to flow through to the final customer. So when the government says, well, we have a royalty that's in there, they say, no, 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 that's going to increase the cost to the customer. So that can't be in there. But of course, you know, that's a double-edged sword because the royalty is also intended to generate income for the government from the project. So these are the thorny issues that are being worked at. Why do I think it can succeed? Because of the level of work that has gone into it, the level of political commitment that we've had to this process. They have often commended us. The U.S. State Department, for example, under President Obama and continued under President Trump, has been very instrumental in assisting us on this project. In fact, I recall that we were favorably mentioned by, forgive me now, who was the Secretary of State under, is it Kerry? Under Obama? John Kerry. We were favorably mentioned, the Nevis project, as one of the projects that they had worked with us and had hoped would come to fruition. So I feel that there's a tremendous political support, groundswell support for this project. I think that the alternative is if we do not try, what happens? And what happens is that we continue to generate greenhouse gases, continue to do damage to the environment through the use of diesel. We continue to buy expensive diesel generators. We continue to pollute the atmosphere by the importation of large quantities of diesel that we have to dispose. We continue to use all these oils and lubricants that we have to dispose. And we continue, I believe, to make our economy very vulnerable to exogenous shocks that we cannot control. So if there's a problem in an oil-producing nation, Nigeria, or there's a problem in Saudi Arabia, oil prices spike, we have no choice. We have to pay. With geothermal, we are in control of our energy. And that, I think, is priceless. Of course, I'm also hoping that in my tenure, we can, flip that switch, as I often say, and have Nevis declare the greenest place on planet Earth, because we would be the first place to have 100% of our power generation powered by geothermal energy, powered by renewable. Other places have mixes, but we would be able to produce 100% of our needs and potentially supply all those sync-ins as well. So that is really where we are hoping to get to. So that is why we're so committed to this project, even though it has been a long and painful process thus far. And our people have grown tired of hearing about geothermal and it not being delivered. I am saying that we are still committed to its delivery and working towards that with our partners. Any other questions? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it only then is left for me to thank you. It is 10 minutes to 12. I think we made good time today, and I look forward to your covering, please, our budget address on the 8th of December at 11 a.m. at the House of Assembly, and there we will lay out what our plans and programs are for the upcoming year. Thank you for your patience. I am advised that this will be the last press conference for the year, because as we go into December, we go into a budget here in Nevis, budget in St. Kitts, and during the budgetary process, we will, of course, give an expanded update on what is happening on the island and in the country. And then, of course, we go into Christmas, and I'm told a virtual carnival. So I would want to thank all of you for your forbearance over the last 11 months, of this year, and invite you to the budget address on December 8th at 11 a.m. That's Tuesday, 2 weeks, week and a half from now. And also to wish you and your families all the peace and blessings for the Christmas season. So I wish you all the very best, and I certainly look forward to reconvening in January, God willing. And I trust and hope that God will spare all of us from COVID and spare all of us from any calamity and any adversity over the rest of this year and into the new year. So thank you very much. Happy New Year when it comes, and we will look forward to seeing you in the new year. Thank you.
Transparency. The format for our press conference this morning is as follows. The Premier will make his usual statement, Then you, the members of the press corps, will be given the opportunity to ask your questions. You're kindly asked to identify yourself and, of course, the media house which you represent. You're kindly asked to turn your phones off or turn them on, put them on silent if necessary. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending another of these series of press conferences where we try to share some information with you and certainly to take your questions. As Mr. Daniel, the Permanent Secretary in the Premier's Ministry, who has been kind enough to be our master of ceremonies, if you will, for these press conferences in the past 2 years, as he has rightly pointed out, this is our effort, ongoing effort, to engage with the public, engage with the community that we serve, and an example we hope that will be seen as a good governance and openness and transparency. I don't always have all the answers, but certainly I try to answer to the best of my ability the questions that come from the press. So I start then with some information. As usual, we start with some congratulations. And I'm told that young Rondre Daniel of the Maud Cross Preparatory School has won the local courts OECS reading competition, and that as a consequence, he will be traveling to St. Lucia next year to represent our federation in the regional tournament. So we extend congratulations to young Rondre and his family. We also extend congratulations to young Khalid Warner of the Elizabeth Pemberton Primary School, who I'm told placed third in the competition. Tamish Esdale, my dear friend and young Calypsonian, I want to wish her all the best. I'm told that she placed first run-up in Sugar Mass 48 female Kaiso competition in St. Kitts. What's her singing name, her Calypsonian? Lady Destiny. And she's singing a song saying her father sent me. Her father sent her. I believe knowing her father, he sent her for the crown. But she got first run-up, and so we want to congratulate Lady Destiny, Tamish Esdale, for a job well done, and look forward to seeing much more from her on the Culturama stage and on the Carnival stage, on the Kaiso stage, locally and regionally. Let me also take the opportunity to congratulate the Empire Sports Club and their chairperson, still chairperson, Honorable Evelyn? President for life, I'm told. The Honorable Eric Evelyn is here. I didn't know those things happen in our part of the world, but he has really shepherded the Empire Sports Club for a very long time and really moved them from beyond just sports to other activities. It's really truly a social club, and they had, I'm told, a wonderful celebration of their 40th anniversary. And so kudos to them, kudos Minister Evelyn, to you and your team, and to the entire membership of the Empire Sports Club for a job well done over these past 40 years. May you continue, sir, from strength to strength as you proceed. The President for Life, the Honorable Eric Evelyn. Let me also congratulate Dame Constance Mitchum. She is a recipient of the Queen's Award for her contribution to national development and law in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. She traveled, I'm told, to England to accept her award on the 21st of November. And so we congratulate her. She would, of course, have made history. I believe she was the first female minister of government, having been a minister in the then PAM NRP administration. And so we thank and congratulate her for her service and this well-deserved award. Let me also congratulate the new Premier of Montserrat, the Honorable Easton Taylor Farrell, on his recent victory at the polls. He went to the polls and triumphed there, he and his team, and I would want to extend congratulations to him and wish him all the very best in his new role as Premier of our sister island of Montserrat. As indicated in the last press conference, the Ministry of Communications had its Contractors Award at NIPAC on the 2nd of November this year. And I can tell you it was a fantastic affair. I want to really take a moment to congratulate Minister Brand and his team, his permanent secretary and the entire team there at the Ministry of Communications. Why? Because it was something that nobody had done before. Perhaps others might have thought of it. I don't know. But even if they thought of it, they did not bring it to fruition. And he and his team did. And I was happy that I was in attendance because looking at the faces, I could see that a lot of these contractors felt good to be recognized. And some 55 persons were awarded in 3 categories: lifetime achievement, excellence in construction, plumbing and electrical installation, and we had some posthumous awards for those who had passed but had nevertheless made their mark. And so congratulations to all of the awardees and the recipients. I myself was surprised that we had so many contractors, because 55 were awarded, and I could tell you there are a lot more who have not yet been awarded, but I believe Minister Brand and his team will make every effort to ensure that all are recognized for their contribution. Our contractors have toiled, they have built, literally, the island, and we thought it prudent to support. And so when Minister Brand came with his brilliant idea, the Cabinet gave its full support, and we're delighted that the contractors have finally been recognized in Nevis for their excellent contribution to the physical construction and development of the island, and for all the employment they would have generated and the economic activity they would have generated over these long years. SIDU, the Small Enterprise Development Unit. You all, I believe, would know by now that I'm a great fan of small business and small business development. And I can tell you that I have been very impressed with the people at SIDU and what they're trying to do. I certainly want to commend Minister Doe, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and the entire team, because they have really kept SIDU in the forefront. And SIDU organized a recent symposium where they had well over 100 businesses and business owners, small businesses, come together at NEPAC, those who had businesses and those who are interested in business. And that symposium exposed the attendees to a wide range of professionals who were there with panel discussions and the like. And I was very happy to have been there at the opening. I think it's an excellent initiative. Indeed, just this morning, as I drove into town, I saw my good friend Carl Claxton at Reliable Motors getting ready to open after a significant investment that he would have made as a local investor. That is what we want to see. Our local people stepping up to the plate. I know that we get caught up sometimes, members of the press, members of the public, and everybody's talking about foreign investment. And foreign investment is important. We all would like, and I would like to come from time to time and announce the next massive investment. But truth be told, that our small business sector is equally important. And if every business or startup were to employ 1 or 2 people, it tells you what we can do in terms of the employment situation on the island. So when I see youngsters like Carl Claxton making that level of investment, it tells me a number of things. It tells me that the business community is growing. It also tells me that they have confidence in the local economy and the stewardship and the policies of this government, because nobody is going to invest in a climate of uncertainty. Nobody is going to invest in a climate where they have no confidence or low confidence in the economic prospects, because people invest to get a return. And so as I passed here this morning, I was very proud. My heart was glad. Mr. Claxton, if you're listening, congratulations, sir. And this is part and parcel of what we're seeking to do with SIDU, is to beef up SIDU's capabilities so that SIDU can actually shepherd small business people. Many of our young people especially have ideas, brilliant ideas sometimes, but they don't know how to articulate it. They can't package it in terms of a proposal, even to be considered for funding. And oftentimes, even if they package it, the banks tell them, we don't want to take a risk on you. You have to come with some land maybe as collateral,